go. What's up, guys? Pepper, Malcolm. Been a long time. Been a while since I talked to you guys. Made a video. A couple of the past videos just been like leftover stuff. Stuff I hadn't finished editing. Stuff I had in there that I could just drop in and make a video out of just to keep the channel moving a little bit. Make sure you guys know I'm not dead. But that being said, we still have Pepper. She's not gone yet. I say yet because we are in the final stretch. Final stretch. We're like right here. Like right here. I hope that's it. That's what we're looking for. So, as you can see in the front, she's got a tucked bumper in the front now. I spent a lot of time getting these headlights straight, or as straight as they can be. Spent a lot of time doing that. You look down here, she's got slicks on now. She's got different tires. These tires have been taken off. They're going to be bead blasted and painted. The rear bumper has the same modification done. It's also been tucked. The muffler had an old piece of catalytic converter exploded inside of it and was making a horrible rattling sound. So I fixed that. We did some HVAC work. We resoldered the blower motor, but we got it to spin last time. It's not spinning this time. I might leave that top off of it and make it manual, because if you manually spin it up, it'll spin. And it'll spin good, but if you don't, it doesn't like to start right away. So I might manually spin it for a couple weeks or a couple days this week, every day when I drive it, to make it try and get going. I think working, the more it lives, the more it runs, the better chance it has of working consistently. Because if I can get that working consistently this week, then it would be worth trying to fix the air conditioning in it. If not, that will have to be somebody else's issue. But that being said, like I said, greased the front and rear brakes. They were squeaking. I fixed that. Readjusted the clutch. Got the clutch where I wanted it. What else have we done to this car? It's broken down a bunch of times. That's the main point where we're getting at. It keeps eating rotors. It just keeps doing it. It keeps killing rotors. Keeps killing caps on the inside. It'll mark up the inside of the cap. This one's clean, but it's just the caps, you know what I'm talking about. The rotor cap. The rotor in the cap is not happy. And the reason why is this. Let me know when you guys see it. Do you see it? Nothing to do with that. That's all good. It's that right there. This bolt hole is in the wrong hole. It's in the far hole. It should be in this one. And because of that, the distributor sits up about 10 degrees or so, 5 degrees or so, and the hood touches it and just keeps popping it. Maybe previously I mentioned how we kept burning through spark plug leads. It would go through a spark plug lead every 100,000 miles. It would just break the top off of it, basically. Split a hole right in it, and then the spark would just jump out. And then you wouldn't be able to drive anymore. That, I think, it was because the hood, we made some adjustments, tried to fix it, and then it got worse. It started knocking the rotor off of it, or moving the rotor off of it, and making the rotor making the cap contact the rotor, excuse me. It would knock the cap off of the rotor, and it would just smash it together, and then you're pissed. You're shit out of luck. It's smashed 2 rotors now, so today, you already see all the leads are off of it. I'll go through it again. It's pretty easy to time these cars now for me. It's I've done it so many times, timing this thing and resetting the fuel on it. So that being said, I just put new oil in this car before it broke down last time. Like literally, the jug of VR1 is still sitting on my table right there. I literally just put a fresh change oil on this, and these cars love to flood gas into the oil. That's what they love to do. When they're not firing, they would just full blast spray those injectors, dump gas in there. You will very easily flood your oil with gas. It's really going to be flood your gas with oil by the time you're done. That's how much gas winds up in there. I wouldn't be surprised if I pulled this off and it already had a little bit of a gaseous smell to it. So just where we want to be, just under the full mark. Hasn't gotten gassy quite yet, but I can just smell a tint of it. Not gassy quite yet, it's still oil, and we're going to try and keep it that way. If you were going to be troubleshooting these things with spark, and that means I would pull the fuel pump relay. Unless you're planning on doing an oil change or the thing's already trash and needs one, you just pull that out of field and you just put 20 bucks oil in it. Cheapest jug they got at Walmart. There you go. You know what I mean? It's pissing out the bottom, but it doesn't really matter. But this car, all new seals, all done. I want it to be nice. The VR1 doesn't leak out of the seals. I tried using 10W20 and it was leaking out of the front end, the front main seal and the front oil pan seal. So VR1 went in it and it hasn't leaked since, so that's what's going to stay in it. I also think the VR1 is better with the zinc content for the way the mechanical tappets run on the cam and the way they touch. The zinc adds a little film, so it's not metal on metal. It'll help prevent dishing of your tappets over time. I've blabbed for a really long time now, so you've seen the issue with the distributor. What we're going to do to remedy that is we're going to pull, let's put you guys back down. We're going to pull the dizzy out. Going to pull that block out and rotate it. And I'll tell you now, that thing is not for the faint of heart. It's not the worst thing ever, but it's a pain in the butt getting back down there. Like I said, I've done that one a couple times now. First and foremost, I had a bad leak on it. The thing just kept leaking and leaking and leaking and leaking, even with a new gasket on it. And I found out that when I was cleaning it, in my young early age, I took too much off of it. It was aluminum. And I wound up gouging the housing on it, and it just leaked profusely ever since then. So, had to replace that. Replaced it, and I followed the same bolt pattern I used, and we ended up in the same problem. So, with that being said, we're going to get a 13 millimeter wrench. I would recommend a flat bar wrench. I'd recommend a flat bar wrench because if you're not careful and you use a ratcheting wrench, you'll ratchet that 13 all the way to the top of the distributor, and then you're going to be in a really bad mood when it's got nowhere to go. And now you're stuck with a wrench on top of the nut. So, word of the wise. I think what I might also do today is check valve clearance. So we pull off the distributor retaining nut. If this one wants to come off, this nut fucking sucks. Should put a new one on it. If I had half a brain in my head, I would. But I don't. I have a quarter of a brain. Next thing, I'll put down a 13. Grab le raja, le rag. That's not Spanish for rag. That was just me saying rag in a Spanish accent. A very poor Spanish accent on that. Spanish, Mexican, whatever. And next, what I like to do is grab a clean rag and go in there and sop up all that oil. There's a bunch of oil in the bottom of this thing. You go down there Take clean rag and just sop it off. That. And then we're going to get our long 10 millimeter. And then we will go and get a short flex head 10, or short ratcheting 10 wrench, sorry. Not over here anymore, they're over here. C-brain now, so no that done. This stuff is done. Can't remember where he puts his tools down. No. Really? So I like to start with the hardest first when taking it off. Give me this guy down here. God damn, who tightened that? Do you get it? Who tightened that? Because I definitely was the last one to tighten it. Never mind, we got our short 10. Shows you how much I remember about doing this. God, fucking Thor put these on? Christ. The fuck was I smoking when I put those on? Let's get a little stretch. Okay, so I have one bolt left in it. That side one you saw me working on. Or is it the top one? The top one. I have the top one in still. So what my plan here to do is I'm gonna just pick it up, put it right back in on the other hole, and then put it back together. Pretty simple, right? Just gonna boop, take the bolt out, boop, put it back in the other hole. So should be pretty simple. Oh, fun. Well, it didn't go particularly to plan, did it? Fine, I found the bolt. That's the plus side. First problem solved. Bolt back. 212, stop in the yard. But now what am I going to do about this? That's a problem. Alright, let's see what we got. Over to the part stash. Hey, he been balling so hard, he think that he Kobe. Go run to the parts counter. Ring ring, parts counter. I need a gasket. I need this one. Yeah, that one. What can you guys do for me? Oh, you have one? Oh, you've got one? Thanks. Perfect. Perfect, thanks. I actually have a second one too. This is why it helps to have parts left over, guys. If you're gonna do stuff like this, I mean, like, if your garage doesn't look like this, right? Starts in the corner, that's all workbench. Couple beers, toolboxes, workbench, welding table, welding, more welding, press, engines, motors, bender, trash can, toolbox again, all the nuts and bolts, more tools up on the ceiling. If this isn't all the parts in the world, motor, LS, Porsche, one's a turbo header build, you know what I mean, 6.0 getting built. If you're not doing this stuff, you don't need these laying around. Don't spend all your money on extra parts. But if you're going to be doing this, like I am, you're going to want to have extra parts laying around. You know, it's, time is money, you know what I mean? And for how much a set of these gaskets costs, to be able to have an extra couple sets laying around. Same with caps and rotors, to have extra caps and rotors laying around, you know what I mean? Something happens, you just slap a new cap and rotor on and keep running. And then we'll go ahead and... So you see, there are two sets of holes. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. You don't use these ones. These ones don't get bolted up. These are for oil flow. But these two, 1, 2. If you use this one, or if you use this one, sorry, it rotates it up more. The way it sits, if you're bolted like this, it sets the distributor up at a higher point. Wherever you have it at. Actually, it sits like this, excuse me. It sits more like this. So if you have it here, it's going to sit higher than if you have it. You know what I mean? So. Cut. Reword that. So, here, you have your distributor gasket. You have two holes on it. On the plane that it's mounted on, if you move it back and forth on this plane, it rotates right here. And you use these holes in difference. Oh, you use different holes, these ones. One will lead to the problem I've been having. It's just smashing the hood. The hood doesn't have a problem with it. The car doesn't have a problem with it. I used the wrong mount, and it made the engine, or it made the distributor sit too high in the chassis, and the hood would just keep smashing it. And it would just obliterate everything. Literally everything. I went through like 4 leads. And yes, I was trying to fix it, I just couldn't figure out what it was. This car's actually been in an accident before. Believe it or not, it was a pretty severe one. I don't know the full details, but it was in a pretty severe accident. In the front, and had a substantial amount of front end work done to it. and I had assumed that something in the work they had done had caused this frame rail to rise, and the nose came back down, and they never got the frame rail to sit again. In a sense, it never sat down again in the middle, and it caused the motor to sit high in that back corner. That's what I personally had assumed was causing it, because it had a good mount in it. I just put like a literal, like, as good as they come for these cars, because these cars don't have new rubber mounts made for them. So you're either looking at like a very custom rubber setup, which is not impossible. Nothing's impossible, but sourcing that, designing it, building it, out of my pay grade, out of my time zone, you know what I mean? It's much more likely that you're going to source a decent decent used set off of a bricked car. What I mean by bricked, I mean Donnie. Parked Donnie, the purple car that I had, parked him at home, and his head gasket blew out everywhere as soon as I parked him. So he got donated to research, as I like to say, donated to science. Now his motor and suspension wound up going on to Penny. His starter and alternator are in this car. Oh, I still have his alternator, actually. His starter's in this car. His ignition switch is in this car. Oh, actually, no, sorry. His ignition switch is in Penny. Because the dumb shit who owned Penny before us jammed a screwdriver in her. And eviscerated the, when you put that gasket on, I recommend you oil slick it when you put it on. Just a little dab between it and the seal. Because if you don't, you're going to have a hell of a time getting it lined up without chewing holes in the corner of them. I don't know where you guys cut off at, but you point the rotor at the notch of the distributor cap, or in the housing, sorry. There's a line in the outer ring of the housing. You have to pull that black cap up to see. You line your rotor right at that, you tighten it down. It should be generally pointed like this. Wherever the rotor is pointing at, that's going to be cylinder number 1 on your cap, okay? So we'll pull Mr. Cappy out here, no cap. In your cap, there's going to be a notch. I'll come bring it and show you guys. There's a little notch. Well, there's 3, but there's a big notch for the 4th one that I'm talking about. See that top notch right here? Top notch, baby? That big notch is going to go in the indent that the black little tray leaves, and that the distributor has in it, right next to the power plug on the distributor, or the receiving plug, where it knows when it's contacting the points. There's gonna be a little notch there. You're gonna make sure you keep your clips out the way. Line up your plastic in the same notch. Get that seated nice and good. Cap on. Cap's nice and happy. And then this will be rotor number 1, or cylinder number 1, excuse me. So we'll pull all our cylinders up on our plugs. One will plop like that. And then the firing order is on top of your valve cover. It's going to be 1342, 1342,